Thank you, Devin. The first GOP debate for the next presidential nominee took place last night in Milwaukee.
To get a closer look at all the action, we had our political correspondent and evening anchor Dan Hagen on site, and he is joining us now to recount the evening's highlights. So good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Jackie and Michael. I don't know how you guys do this every morning. This is way too early for me, and I know you guys are up even earlier. But before we get into what happened last night, I just want to talk about what's behind me. Right now, I'm at my friend's apartment building. They have like a mezzanine, so we're looking at Milwaukee behind me. The Fiserv Forum is about a mile that way, maybe half a mile that way. So that's where the debate took place last night.
Well, that's fantastic. Glad you could join us this morning. You're looking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as always. And so let's get right into it. The presidential debate that was going on for the GOP candidates. It was the first one of its kind in Milwaukee for the season. Now, walk us through who was there and what was kind of the takeaway.
Right, so I think the headline is who wasn't there. There were 8 candidates on the stage, but that did not include Donald Trump. He's currently leading the field by 20, 30, 40 points in some national polls. The people on the stage, I think there's a clear dividing line between the candidates who are kind of trying to defend Trump, maybe get some of his voters, and other candidates that were trying to attack Trump. When I say that latter group, what comes to mind most is former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He was very aggressive in attacking Trump last night, especially when it comes to democracy and the January 6th Capitol riots. But when it comes to most of the other candidates, they tried to defend Trump. The guy's a really popular figure in the Republican Party, so I don't know how much benefit it'll give you if you're trying to attack him and potentially alienating his voters. So it was kind of walking a fine line for many of the candidates last night. However, others were aggressive in attacking him.
So would you say that the legal issues facing Trump were a front and center issue, or what were some of the more common, bigger topics?
Yeah, so Trump was a factor, but I was kind of surprised he wasn't brought up that much. There was a question about him in the middle of the debate, and that's when we really kind of heated up talking about him. But, you know, it was kind of what you expected in terms of topics. They attacked Biden. They attacked his economic plan. It was interesting to see the diversity of opinions on some topics. For example, some candidates did not want to send any more aid to Ukraine. Some candidates were full-throated in their defense of Ukraine, hearkening back to when Ronald Reagan was president, and he was very aggressive when it comes to foreign relations and improving democracy abroad. So that was a cool dividing line between candidates. I'll leave it there.
Oh, well, thank you, Dan. And now, taking a spin over to Wisconsin, did any of them kind of touch on any of our Wisconsin issues, or specifically anything related to, perhaps the Northwoods?
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, they brought up some Milwaukee voters. They brought them on the screen for them to ask questions. They kind of talked about how prices are higher. But besides that, no, the focus was on other things. But I do want to mention, why was Wisconsin chosen as the first site for this debate? And the fact is, Wisconsin is one of the few remaining swing states left in the country. This 2024 election is most likely to come down to Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia, maybe some other states, but it's because of this electoral college system we have in the country. Every other election is determined by popular vote, but it's kind of this quirk that the presidential election is determined by these electors, and that's why you see candidates not really in California or Wyoming, because those states are pretty much locked up. They're going to be spending time in those kind of 6, 5, 7 swing states that I mentioned, and Wisconsin is one of the swingiest of those swing states. In 2020, Joe Biden won the state by less than a percentage point. 2016, Donald Trump won the state by less than a percentage point, and people are expecting it'll be pretty close again in 2024.
So very curious to see if it goes back and forth. And these debates they're a big deal when it comes to this. So when is the next debate going to be scheduled?
Yeah, so the next debate, I'm not sure when it exactly will be, but it's going to be at the Ronald Reagan Library in California. Oh, and the question for that debate is whether Donald Trump will show up to that. I know he has some beef with the Ronald Reagan Library, so he's expressed that he might not do any debate. And it kind of stands to reason what his strategy would be in going, because he's leading the polls by so much. What does he have to gain by going to them? But I do want to kind of share an anecdote. Last night, I was in the spin room, which is basically where candidates go to spin their performances after the debate to the media. And I ran into Donald Trump Jr. He was there, but he wasn't allowed, according to him, to be on the floor of the spin room. he told the media that Fox News wasn't letting him be on the floor of the spin room. Instead, he was kind of in the media room where just generally media members are watching the debate, taking notes, that sort of thing. So I just thought that was an interesting dynamic. I expect that dynamic between the Trump wing of the party and the rest of the Republicans to kind of heat up in this primary process.
Well, thanks, Dan, for covering this important event and giving the Northwoods some representation out there on the floor.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.